So tonight my goal for you all is to finish her Wayward Cowboy. We will hopefully start a new book tomorrow. Also a new book for the kids. Just wanted to give you an update. So let's finish this love story and see if our two characters get together the way they should. That's one thing I love about reading, is stories always end the way they should. Logically, she understood that people enjoyed strange and intimate things when they were aroused, but now she understood on a level that had nothing to do with logic. She understood in that quiver of excitement low in her belly. She understood in that hollow place between her legs that was getting wet from the friction. And she also understood that control that would not be entirely hers. And she had to make a decision right now. Either do what she did, throw up a wall and run away, or give an inch. Let a little bit of that wall crumble, raise the white flag of surrender, even if just a halfway. Her plan had been to brazen all of this out, to offer no explanation for her scars on her body. For all he knew, she had them then. He'd never seen her. To act like she was okay with them, to act like there was no story, to act like it hadn't taken her relationship with her father from toxic to near non-existent, to act like it hadn't made her feel like she ruined herself. She was so good at walls. She was just gotten so very good at them. Is there a place we can go? Yeah, I was planning on parading you past my brothers and taking you upstairs to my childhood room, she said, doing a good job of keeping a straight face, because she was kind of commentary was her strength. Great, he said, if you're cool with that. You would not seriously do that. I'm 42 years old, he said. I'm not going to treat you like a dirty little secret. Oh, I think you're trying to push me away. It's the Arizona King specialty. I'm happy to parade you through the kitchen, but are the other alternatives? Yeah, there's a place, one of the cabins that's empty out at the edge of the King property. We can go there. I can drive, he said. Great. And that was how she found herself seated in the front of his truck, her nerves growing, tightening, making it nearly impossible for her to breathe. And when they pulled into the gravel lot right in front of the small cabin, Micah laughed. What? She snapped. What's funny? I feel like I'm sneaking around with you, and I can't say that as I've snuck around with anybody for a long time. Oh, right. Well, we aren't sneaking around. We just aren't parading. When Daniel is with me, I don't go off to have sex, but he's hanging on with the ranch hands back at the bunkhouse, and I know he's good. He looked a little wistful, and it's you I'm here with. You say it that like it matters. Well, it does. To me, it does. Why? She couldn't help but ask. She shouldn't ask that because she felt a little bit raw and a little bit scared, and she wanted to be that Arizona that kept everybody far away from her. Wanted to be the Arizona that she had become in order to protect herself. Because it was so important. Because it had been so important. You know, you meet people in this life and you forget so many of them. Time marches on and the world changes and you change with it. And it just all changes. And there are certain people that stay with you. They made you feel something. They showed you something. You were one of those people. I've always thought you were so smart and funny, and I just liked being around you. No one had ever said anything like that to her in a long time. And she knew it was her own fault. Knew that people didn't particularly like being around her because of her own behavior. But Micah remembered her as someone who had been fun. Someone he wanted to be around. It was the strangest gift she hadn't known she needed. I'm not that person anymore, she said. But you still think I'm hot, then we might have something tonight. It's more than that, he said. It can't be more than that. You don't know me. You know me, and if you ever decide that you want me to know you, I'd like that. Well, I don't want to talk right now, she said. I just want you to get naked. I'm definitely on the same page. He killed the truck's engine and got out and she sat for a second before following him out of the truck and heading toward the cabin. It was small and she knew that there would be no cooling or heating running in it for a while. But it didn't matter. The heat of the day was done and it would be perfectly nice inside, and she shivered. She went ahead and pushed the door open. It was simple, small inside, a bed that was barely big enough for two, shoved into the corner, and it loomed large. But she wasn't going to let her nerves have this moment. She was not going to let anything but desire have it, because hadn't she been through enough. It didn't matter that he was leaving. It didn't matter what he thought. It didn't matter that he said all these things about wanting to know her. None of it mattered. What mattered was this. What mattered was her finally getting what she wanted, and maybe, just maybe, it would be the thing that she needed in order to get some closure. Yeah, maybe that was the thing. Maybe it was what she needed to be her again, to be the woman that someone wanted to be around, to be the Arizona she'd been before she had let her heart broken. And she broken herself. So she banished all her misgivings, pushed them to the side, because this was her moment, her reclamation, because nobody got to decide this moment it was except for her. And she decided that it was going to be liberating, that it was going to be fun, and she wasn't going to overthink it. So she was the one to close the distance between them this time. She stretched up on her toes and wrapped her arms around his neck, and she felt she was breathing him in, tasting him, and this man who had been her deepest, darkest fantasy all these years ago. And it wasn't because she had wanted him, or at least not simply because of that. It was because she had cared, and she had always wanted to keep him, that part of herself, protected, always. And it was so damn difficult, all of it was. But this didn't feel difficult. It felt wonderful. It felt glorious. And yeah, he would find these things, but what about her when she took her clothes off? But she couldn't worry about it. Come on, pages. Couldn't make it about him. She wouldn't make it about him, so she kissed him. And she luxuriated in this moment where she was getting what she wanted, this moment where she had the victory, because she did. This was wonderful, decisive victory of this man being her after all these years. And maybe, just maybe, if she saw this moment as inevitable, it would take away some of the sting or regret, just maybe. They weren't meant to be. She wasn't quite that foolish, and anyway, they were strangers, effectively. Her teenage love didn't matter, not now, but her adult desire did. So she kissed him with everything she had, with everything she was, and she luxuriated in the textures of it all, the heat of the heat of his mouth, the feel of his stubble beneath her fingertips. And she was lost in it, in him. She kissed him like she might die if she didn't. And considering she had nearly died when he left, it didn't feel like a totally overdramatic metaphor. No, it didn't feel overdramatic at all. His hands were rough, and suddenly she realized they were coming up beneath her shirt, and internally she cringed, because while most of her scars were concentrated on the lower portion of her body, there was some pretty significant scarring on her torso as well. But she wasn't going to act like it mattered. She wouldn't. He paused and her heart stopped beating. Micah? Condoms, he said. Do you not just have them in your wallet? No. Well, shoot. She didn't have any form of birth control because she had never needed it. She separated from him, scurried over to the nightstand next to the bed, praying that she wasn't going to open and find a scorpion or a mouse. She did so just so quickly and breathed out a sigh of relief when she found a box of condoms inside the several perfectly sealed packets. There's a rotation of guys who come through here. I was hoping that I could count on one of the men to be men. I guess we should give him thanks for the predictability of testosterone. No kidding, she said. Because if she would have come to this far only to be stalled out by birth control, she would have been pretty angry. He was kissing her again even more passionately than before, and this time, when his hands went beneath her shirt, they didn't pause. She tried to keep her breathing steady, but it was because came difficult. She was aroused and she was nervous, and the cocktail of the two was pretty undeniable. It was the swirl of adrenaline that couldn't be denied, and frankly, she had no interest in denying it. Then he pushed her shirt up over her head, and her breath caught and held. He didn't say anything. He moved his hands over her back, around to the front. His fingers skimmed the deep, biting grooves where the twisted metal from the car had tried to take a bite out of her. But he said nothing. His eyes moved to her breasts, his gaze going hungry, but he didn't grab her there or anything like that. He took his time, rough hands skimming over her curves, working their way up until his thumbs brushed her nipples through the thin fabric of hers. She shivered. Yes, she whimpered. It was a soft sound, and she almost couldn't believe something quite so pleading had come from her own mouth. She almost loved it. She almost loved it because it reminded her of another time, another moment, and maybe she could cast herself back and be 18-year-old Arizona who had wanted all of this with so much passion that the end of it had, and suddenly all the emotion welled up inside her, and she understood why she wanted to run from it. Because when she'd been hurt before, she had been self-destructive. In a real serious way, because when she had been hurt before, she had done a level best to destroy her own self. Because when she'd been hurt before, that had been catastrophic, but not here, not now. And it felt like justice that he was the one who had to contend with those scars. And right in that moment, she took it as justice, as her due. "You're beautiful," he said, his voice verging on the reverence of an awe, and that small mean thing inside of her seemed to evaporate. Because he didn't make her feel like a punishment, he made her feel like a gift, and that was not anything that she was familiar with, not now, not anymore. "Micah," she whispered. He reached around and unhooked her bra, her eyes hungry as he took in the sight of her, and she wanted to cry, but she wouldn't let herself because Arizona King did not cry. Not anymore. But his hands were on hers, his palms were hot and rough, and her whole body cried out for his touch. Everywhere, even on the ruined places. And it was like she was just so aware that what she had been denied all this time. Just so aware. But now it was her turn. Her turn to collect a forfeit. Her turn to get a gift. She pushed her fingers underneath his shirt and found him hot and hard. She could feel his muscles well defined and glorious, and knew that they would be everything even before she could see him. She pushed the shirt up and he groaned, and her internal muscles clenched tight as she slowly revealed the extent of his masculine beauty to her own hungry gaze. His abs sculpted and well defined, his chest hard and muscular, and the way that she wanted him was like a beast inside of her. Bigger and more than anything she'd ever experienced before. Bigger, better, everything. She gripped his broad shoulders and continued to kiss him hard and deep. Her bare breast rubbed against his chest, and she grasped at the sensation. She could feel everything, not just anger, not just fear, everything. And it was so far beyond what she had fantasized about, so far beyond what she had ever thought she could have. And did she feel the moistening gathering in the corners of her eyes, and did she her best to ignore it? Did her best to pretend it was not happening? And she tried to focus on the feeling, the here, the now, the physical aspect of it all, not the emotions that were swirling deep inside of her. But it was hard because he was here, and he was Micah. And as much as she had done her best to pretend that he wasn't everything, he was. He always had been. She took the initiative to take the rest of his clothes off because she thought that maybe seeing a naked man in the flesh for the first time in her life would do something to jostle her out of this emotional space because she didn't want to feel things, not those kind of things. And he was beautiful all over. She felt a slight tensing inside of her nerves, but she ignored them, and she wrapped her hand around his hot, hard length, and her breath hissed through her teeth as his did the same. "You're a very beautiful man," she said, trying to seem confident, trying to seem like the sort of woman who absolutely knew what was going on and not the inexperienced 31-year-old virgin that she was, because that was ridiculous. And she even felt sort of ridiculous. And she did not want him to think that she was ridiculous. And that was how she found herself being propelled backward onto the bed, her jeans and underwear removed in one fluid motion. Before she had a chance to protest or process what was happening, and she saw it the moment he saw her, all of her, the mangled scar tissue that started at her pelvic bone and went down her thigh on her left side, curving around her calf. The whole leg had been completely mangled in the accident. Her bone had come through the flesh, and it showed. The other side was bad off too. Through the scar tissue was more delicate webbing over different parts of her leg, rather than something wholly misshapen. He didn't say anything, but he moved his hands over the scars, and she wanted to scream because nobody looked at them, nobody touched them. She was the only one who had to live with them, and she was the one who looked away when she saw her naked body in the mirror. Who tried never to look down at her legs, who always wore long pants, who would never wear a dress. She was the one who would never show her vulnerability, not even to herself. And here he was, looking and touching like he had every right, and it made her shiver. With need, with desire, with every single thing that she hadn't wanted to feel for all these years. What if he turned away from her? Except then he put his hands on her knees and spread her legs roughly, and it wasn't her scars that he was looking at now. He lowered his head, nuzzling her inner thigh, and she gasped. "So damn beautiful," he said, before burying his face in her legs and licking her deep. A short, sharp sound escaped her lips, and her hips lifted off the bed. She was consumed then with all the everything of it all, that hot swipe of his tongue, the masculine growl of desire, that fact that he didn't seem disgusted. He simply seemed consumed, and so was she. She let her head fall back as he pleasured her, and this was so different than being by herself. His tongue created complex web of desire inside her, and she cupped her own breasts, rubbing the thumbs over the nipples as he continued to pleasure her that way. It was so good, so good. She rocked her hips restlessly in time with the pulse of pleasure created by the wicked tongue, and she needed. He pushed a finger inside of her, and then another, and she rippled, then shattered. And while her need was still pulsing inside of her, he took one of the condom packets and tore it open. It was rolled it over his hardened length, and then he thrust into her. She gasped, the unexpected tearing sensation jarring her out of her haze. A raw cry was torn from her lips, and she felt the tears gathering in the earnest at the corner of her eyes. "Arizona?" Her name was harsh question, but she shook her head, biting her lip. "Please," she said, "just please." He nodded, then grunted, thrusting deeper into her, and this time it didn't hurt quite so much. This time she could feel the pleasure building even as the pain receded. She wiggled her hips, and he began to move, and it was everything. She clung to his shoulders, nails digging into his skin, and she looked up, her eyes meeting his, and she was seen, utterly and completely. There was no walls. There was nothing but him, so close inside of her, and she was a fool. Because of all of her defenses crumbled, every last one. She shattered, and he called out her name. And in the end, it was two of them, sweat slicked and clinging to one another. And Arizona couldn't breathe. "Arizona, do you want to tell me about all of this?" And Arizona did what she did best. She rolled out of the bed and she got ready to run away. Chapter 12. He could see it. He could feel it, the withdrawal, the distance, but he wanted to know. He wanted to know what had happened, the scars, and why had she been a virgin? A virgin. He couldn't even handle that. How was that after all these years? And her skin spoke of trauma. Her behavior spoke of trauma. And she hadn't shared it with him. He hadn't known. He wanted to know. Don't do it, he said. Don't run from me. You came this far. Tell me. She said nothing. She bent down to start to collect her clothes, and his eyes followed the curving, biting marks along her lower back, her ass, her side. Arizona, don't, she said. You don't get to demand my story. No, I'm not demanding it, you damn silly girl. I'm asking you to share yourself with me because I care about you. Because I'm the first man that you've done this with, because I can see that you're hurt. And I want to know everything. What good does it do? What good would it do if they all knew all of this was how I looked? That this is what happened to me. That it's never going to be any better. What good would it do? Just easier to keep people at arm's length. It's easier to keep them away. It's easier because, Arizona, he said, his voice was rough, I want to know. More. All of it. It isn't to gawk at you. It's because I want to know you. I want to know what hurts you, sweetheart. I want to know you. You're leaving, she said. What fucking good does it do, Micah? What good would it even do if you left me? You left me and my life fell apart. I loved you, she said, and her voice was vibrating with conviction. I loved you. I gave you my first kiss. I gave you everything. I loved you, and you thought that you did me a favor by not having sex with me, as if that was the thing that protected me. But you let me love you, and then you left me. I told you difficult things were with my dad. I shared with you how I felt alone sometimes, and how difficult it was for me without my mother, without everything. You knew that. You were the only person who ever did. And then you left. You left me, she repeated. And it hurts. It hurts so damn badly, Micah. There was no one here to save me, and I had to save myself. Sweetheart, I did not want to leave you. I didn't want to hurt you. You did. And I was broken. I went out driving down the highway too fast, sobbing my eyes at night. I caused you to have an accident? Yes, she said. The venom in her words were hard and angry. You did. You did this to me. You broke me and then broke me even more. And I am ruined, and I keep it a little hidden from everybody because I don't want them to feel sorry for me, because I'm pitiable, and I felt apart, and I got stitched back together. My body was broken. My insides were falling out of me. I'll never get over that. I'll never get over it. I nearly died, and I don't even know how to cry about it or feel anything about it, because I just supposed to be grateful that I'm okay, and everybody thinks that I'm healed, but nobody knows what I look like. Nobody knows that I carry around all this stuff. He knew enough about her family to guess that if one of them put up walls, no one would try too hard to get over them. They seemed to take emotional distance to a new level. And that would leave Arizona alone in her pain. I know, he said, and I want to know more. I'm so sorry. Don't. I didn't want to be pitied, and I didn't want to explain myself. All I wanted was to rip this damn Band-Aid off. You were supposed to fuck me back then, and you didn't. I would have been prettier, so now you had to fuck me messed up. I don't think you're messed up. That's where you're wrong. I'm a hell of a messed up, and there's no fixing it. I don't want to fix this. All these feelings, I can never give you that. I can never give you me. Not ever again. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. She dressed, covering her scars, but he felt them, burned into his soul. He felt the consequences of her knowing him all those years ago burrow beneath his skin and make him sick. This was his fault in so many ways. This was his fault. Arizona, fuck off, she said, and then she gathered all of her things and ran out of the cabin. She didn't take his truck. She just ran. And he was with the shattered glass where his heart used to be. Chapter 13. She did what she did. She ran. She was so good at this. And Venom, at anger, about half a mile from the cabin, she collapsed, fell onto the ground, and just started to cry. Because telling the story of her accident had opened up all those scratchy old wounds, not the ones on her body, the worst ones, the ones in her heart, the ones in her soul. How much had she loved him and how much it had hurt. How terrifying it had been, the way her dad had looked at her in the hospital bed. Stupid move, could have gotten yourself killed. Would have been your own stupid fault. She hadn't deserved to complain. She hadn't deserved to cry because it was her fault. And he was right. So she got angry instead at everyone. Don't accept pity because you're a cripple, her dad said once when she was still recovering, limping. It was why she had put so much effort into the never showing any pain, even if her old injuries did still hurt her. He wasn't cruel, that was the thing. He'd always been there. He didn't hit people, and not like the patriarch of the McLeod family, hadn't abandoned them when they were kids like the father of the Sullivan clan. No, he had been there, his words a dagger that had ground her inadequacy soul deep. She had to learn to push back, to create a barrier around herself so that she wouldn't quite be so raw. He hadn't had the decency to hit him with his fists to leave marks on their skin. He just left them on their souls, made it so they were so battered that they couldn't feel right, not anymore. And then Daniel, that sweet boy. Daniel was here, and she had connected with him, and Michael was here, and she wanted him. It made her want to be soft. It made her want to be different. But she was afraid that it was too late, and wasn't that the most unfair thing? And it was impossible. It was all impossible, because this was the only thing that she knew how to do. She didn't know how to soften. She didn't know how to let her guard down. She didn't know love. Arizona, she looked up, and he was standing there. What are you doing out here? And we're about to lose the phone again. So I'm going to pause right here. We'll pick up next time. Thank you for tuning in.